What's up, everyone? Shane Larson here with the Game Time Guru podcast. A couple weeks ago, we had Chris Sorrow, professional bare knuckle fighter, here on the show, sharing his story with us, getting to know him better. And in that interview, we talked about a loss that he had to a man by the name of Josh Burns. Well, today, this is the first time on the Game Time Guru where we're going to be interviewing an opponent of one of our former guests, and I'm going to be talking to Josh Burns. It's going to be an awesome conversation. You're going to learn his story. It's super, super exciting. And you get to hear his whole journey in bare knuckle fighting, including his reign over in the UK before it became legal here in the US. He's been fighting in mixed martial arts for quite some time and has quite the journey and story to share with the rest of us. So make sure you're subscribed to the podcast, that you've left a review for the show on Apple Podcasts, and get ready because this is the Game Time Guru. So,
what time is it? Game time!
This is the Game Time Guru podcast, where I interview sports figures from all over the world to help deliver a panoramic view on sports. So whether you're a former athlete, one of the crazies, or simply a casual sports fan, this is the perfect show for you as we peel back the curtains and learn from our guests every single week. I'm your host, Shane Larson, and I'm helping you see sports through a different lens. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Game Time Guru podcast. I am your host, Shane Larson. This is episode 204 of the show. Excited to have everybody here with us today for this awesome interview as we're going to get to know another professional fighter at a deeper level. Before we get started, I just got to give a shout out to all the listeners and all the supporters over the last 4.5 years who have helped this show grow to what it is. Like I said before, 91 different countries, over 67,000 downloads of the show. We continue to grow. Now, listen, we have the show on all the podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and so forth. Slowly building the YouTube channel so you guys can go over there. That's not the biggest platform, but I would encourage you guys, if you want to see the video version of these interviews, go to YouTube and subscribe as we continue to slowly build that channel. But the show has been on all the podcast platforms from the very beginning. If you happen to listen to it on Apple, leave me a review. Let's get this show to continue to grow and get out to more people. Now, you guys have listened to the show. You know that massive fan of combat sports. We've had a couple of different types of fighters on the show, and most recently we had a bare knuckle fighter. Well, through that interview, kind of stemmed up the thought of reaching out to our guest today, which is Josh the Hammer Burns, who is another bare knuckle fighter, and there's a reason for that. We might get to it here in the interview, but I get to talk to Josh today and hear about his story. So first things first, Josh, thanks for joining the show, man.
Right on, man. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. So, Josh, if you wouldn't mind, this is a reason I'm asking this question. Do you mind telling the audience, how old you are and how long you've been fighting for?
So I'm 43, and I've been boxing since I was 5, and switched over to kickboxing at the Jet Center in Canoga Park, California, with Benny the Jet at 11, and did kickboxing for like 5 years, 6 years straight, and then went back to boxing. Got a few golden gloves, a couple silver gloves under my belt, and then met Mark Coleman, Kevin Randleman, the Hammer House crew, and started doing the MMA. From that point forward, moved up to Detroit. So I was kind of trying to hone in on the boxing a little more because, might be a little more money in it at the time. And, Manny Stewart, God bless him, he's passed now, but Manny was just like, look, bro, the Tyson era is over. Everybody I was sparred with was like 6'5", 6'7". Julius Long was like 7'2", and I just couldn't touch these guys. Like the Lennox Lewis just keep me long, and just couldn't touch them unless I wrestled with them. And then, of course, Manny didn't like that at all. So long story short, that's how it all got began. And, was supposed to fight the UFC, fight Gabriel Gonzaga, and Gonzaga broke his hand. And so they were going to shelf me. And instead of being shelved and waiting, I decided to, with my manager at the time, Brett Baker, we decided to take the jump over to Bellator. We went to Bellator with fought our good friend Eric Prendel, and we're both 6-1, and the rest is history, man. Fought there, and by the time my MMA was more of a hobby for me, my true love is boxing, and I'm a short heavyweight, obviously. So boxing really wasn't an option for me with the new era of fighters that were coming out. Tyson Fury's, guys like that. They're just long. It's hard to touch them, And I'm not the most. I've got skill. I've learned from the best in the world. I can teach it, but my little short, stumpy ass, I'm more of a fighter. So when the bare knuckle presented itself, shoot, this like almost 7 years ago, and with Dave Feldman here in the States. But he ran into a lot of roadblocks, and I didn't want to sit stagnant. I had one more fight with Bellator, and I really didn't want to go back to MMA because it was really more of a hobby, and I didn't. I trained hard and I tried to fight hard, but it didn't have my fire, didn't have my passion. And I just got an offer to fight Bareknuckle in the UK through a guy named Shannon Rich. And he set it up. I went over to the UK, and, that's it. The rest is what we see here. I fell in love with it. It was probably the pure sport that I love. Guys got to stand and bang with me. It's not MMA where they can run and try to, grab me, kick me, do all that junk. And they got to stand and bang, and it's bone on bone. So, I have a 100% finish ratio, 7-3, and all 7 of my wins came by knockout under 3 minutes. And just there you go. That's me in a nutshell.
Man, so that is so awesome. And the thing is, the reason I even asked the question in the beginning of how old you are is because somebody might look at that and be like, 43. Like, whoa, dudes. And, the typical fans gonna be like, that's like Anderson Silva style type of like fighting way past your prime, yada, yada, yada. But I'm going to tell everybody as we get to know you a little bit more, I still think you've got a lot left in the tank, man. And that's what's so much fun about like talking to someone like yourself, and you have this passion, this drive. Age is literally just a number. And I think it is the coolest thing to see that you're like at the top of this game pretty much in bare knuckle fighting. Now, you did fight, like you said, for Bellator, some bigger promotions in mixed martial arts. See, it's not just like you're fighting mixed martial arts all at local promotions, like these smaller. You did get an opportunity to fight in a bigger promotion, and I am curious, Josh, the professionalism. I want to know from your perspective as a fighter how the BKFC, for example, which is relatively new in combat sports in the United States compared to like that of Bellator, like these promotions, how do they compare with one another? Do you feel like the BKFC is pretty professional, the way they conduct themselves when you actually are part of the event compared to like that of Bellator or something like that nature?
Yeah, no, I think BKFC definitely tries to conduct themselves at the highest level. The good thing is we have Nate Shook, who's been around the game a long time, Dave Feldman, who was a fighter himself. So they know the game and they know how things are supposed to be done. And then you got Dave Jr., which is Senior's son. And that guy's like a media guru. The guy knows everything. So he runs all the media. And, just like any young company up and coming, we got some, hiccups here and there. But besides that, I mean, it's professional as any show. I mean, I've been backstage for the UFC, been obviously fought 7 times for Bellator, all main events, our main card, excluding once. And they literally have the same production, the same operations. It's amazing to see, and the sport's growing. I went to the UK for 5 years because it wasn't legal here. And it did get legalized when I was fighting in the UK, but I had a 2-year contract there. And I finished my contract with them. And, I think they had been here 2 years by the time I signed with them. And by the time I fought the first fight with Chris Sarro, I think it was their 3rd year. And just from that first fight with Sarro to now, it's just grown leaps and bounds from then to now, which is a short period of time. So, as far as the professionalism and the way the production crew and everything, they do great. They do a great job, and they try their damnedest to keep it at the highest level.
That is awesome. As a fan, it seems like it on the productions, like when I'm watching them, I love them. I love how they do it. And in fact, for those who haven't caught a BKFC like promotion, you haven't watched an event, I highly encourage you to do so, because I love how it's efficient, man. You get a lot of fights on the production, and it's like, and it goes like they're very efficient with getting the fights out there. They're exciting, but they get them done and they move to the net. It's not like a ton of like wait time, and I think it looks great from the fans' perspective. It's always cool, but it's cool to hear it from an actual fighter who's participating in the event and how it compares to that of like Bellator since you've been there. Now, you mentioned fighting in the UK, and this is a question I've had, like especially in the boxing world, right, Josh? It's like a lot of fighters from overseas for a long time didn't get the credit. Like Tyson Fury took a lot of flack because he was winning titles over on that side of the world, and no one actually like believed he was that great of a fighter, because people just like kind of dog on that side for when it comes to fighting. Tell me your experience when in bare knuckle, at least fighting over there, the fighters that you competed with there compared to what you've seen so far in the BKFC. Do you feel like they've got some good bare knuckle fighters in the UK?
Yeah, well, you got to think like this is not boxing, and I'm a boxing fan first, and yeah, with boxing, it's absolutely. You're in the UK and you've done a lot of great stuff in the UK as a boxer. You're not proven until, and Fury knows that. Like, look what Tyson did. He came here and fought here on American soil, and beat an American, a stud here in America, and that's what gave him validity. And that's, not like he wasn't a big fan or big star before, but that gave him validity. Now, as far as bare knuckle, you have to think this stuff started and originated in the UK. So you have the travelers, the gypsies and the travelers, and I think it's the same people. Sorry, but these guys are cut from a different cloth, truly. And I met some great guys like Jimmy Sweeney, Nick Terrell, Harry Miles, Jimmy McCory. Like these guys are legends, and Jimmy McCory and Jimmy Sweeney for sure. Those guys been around forever, and they grow up doing this thing. And I think in the UK they don't have guns like we do here, so they take it a little different. There's a lot of knife violence over there, and bats and all that good junk. But most of the time, you'll see a lot of these guys do what they call straighteners, and they'll be like, "Yo, you got a problem with me? I got a problem with you." They bring their money. They bring their money. They give it to a mutual third party, and they fight it out bare fist. And winner takes all. They shake hands when they're done, and it's done. And you got to have a lot of. You have to have respect for that. So, do they have a lot of quality fighters? I think they had fighters there when I was there. Jimmy Sweeney and those guys are really solid. They have a lot of good fighters from Wales and the UK. The sad thing is a lot of these guys get locked into the smaller promotions like the BKB over there, and they're never really going to get an opportunity to see what could happen over here in the US. Now, the BKFC is going to go to UK, but at the same time, if these guys are locked into contracts, and trust me, it's like girls fighting promotion between the two promotions. Like, at the end of the day, BKFC, they're the A level, and BKB is definitely the B level. And the best fighters that fight for them know that. Like Mick Terrell. We got Mick Terrell over here. I fought him for the heavyweight strap in the UK at the O2 Arena. And they stopped it in the fourth because my nose got ripped off. But it was a great fight. We were still fighting. And Mick's one of the best fighters in the world. And he retired because they don't pay him enough over there. They don't take care. They just didn't have the means to make it worth his time. And, with Ian Mosey, we got it worked out and got him over here. He's going to be fighting this in 2 weeks in Tampa. And he'll be fighting the first ever BKFC heavyweight champion, Adam Arnold's. So it's right there is going to show you whether or not, the UK has what it takes to fight with the Americans, because Adam Arnold was a world champion, the first world champion for BKFC. And my personal opinion, I like AJ Arnold's Adam. I think he's a great fighter. I think he's slick, but I just think Mickey's going to be too much. I've personally stayed in the ring with Mick, and Mick's a problem. He's going to be a problem for a lot of guys over here. So that's a long answer to an easy question, but yeah, I think they got a lot of great fighters over there.
That's a great answer to the question. So I appreciate that. I've always been interested in that concept and that whole side of it. And I didn't know about the culture over there too. So I appreciate that perspective as well. Like just the culture of being over there in the UK, kind of what they do. You don't realize it as a normal person over here. You don't realize that they don't have guns over there the same they do here, like same rights and whatnot, the same access to that. So a lot of it's done with, their hands, and that's kind of what they grow up with. So you have to have a little bit of respect for that. Now, Josh, the BKFC, I'm curious, how your camps go, right? Let's say you get a fight, and when you're a professional boxer or a professional MMA fighter, typically a camp is going to last anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks, depending on the person and their means and whatnot. I'm curious, for bare knuckle, do you train the same way? How do you do a specific, like an actual camp? And what do those consist of for a fighter like yourself?
Yeah, it's just funny to watch all these yahoos get in here and act like they know, especially Americans. The Americans, they're just now getting hip to this bare knuckle, and you see American. Oh, I'm out here. They're punching steel poles and doing all this stuff that the monks and Shaolin monks do. I'm like, yo, bro, they do that shit for like 20 years, and their shit turns to like really hard, right? But bro, you do that stuff in 6 weeks, it's just superficial wounds to your hand. You're not callousing nothing. Like, you got to train like a boxer. That's what happens. You put on your 16-ounce gloves. What I like to do is I like to train without wraps, because that makes my wrist stronger. The impact's a lot more real to my hand. Besides, I'm not having superficial wounds to the skin, not tearing knuckles off, stuff like that. And it's my tools. You got to take care of your tools. And in bare knuckle, you're training like a boxer. That's what I mean. I don't care what anybody tells you. You're going to train like a boxer that's a hybrid wrestler, because in the BKFC, they allow you to clinch. Some guys are saying, oh, it's a Muay Thai. Well, a plum tie is a two-handed plum tie. Boom. So we're only allowed to do singles. So if you're doing a single tie, that's like wrestling. So, and as you wrestle, you're in a position, and it's going to be about footwork, pressure. People don't realize that the ropes for BKFC are steel bars. Okay, so galvanized pipe. And my last fight, I had a poor outing. I pretty much fell flat in my fight against Frank Tate. So no like I'm not taking anything away from Frank. Frank beat my ass, and God bless him. He did what he had to do. But in that second round, you see I fall and I hit my head on the back onto the galvanized pipe, and I'm telling you that rung my bell more than, and it wasn't even a knockdown. We just tripped over his feet. And that rung my bell more than any punch that he threw, because it's a steel bar. And so you got to know your environment. You got to prepare for it. And it's a brutal, savage environment, but it's artwork, and that's why I love it so much. You know what I'm saying? So, we got to, as far as training camp goes, you have to do wall work, because when you push up against the ropes, it's not ropes like in a boxing ring. Like, that shit's like a wall. I can push you up. If you watch Chris and Saros fight with myself, we ended up on the ropes a couple times at a high rate of speed. And you'll see them move like up or down, but they don't bend. And when you hit those things, they'll put bruises on you. And so you can utilize those just like MMA would use wall work. So in my opinion, if you're not doing wall work as a bare knuckle fighter, you're an idiot. If you're not doing wrestling, like stand up, grappling, like Greco, if you're not doing it, you're missing something. So, because that's part of the whole game, and for a guy like me, shorter, stout, like, I'm going to want to get inside. I'm going to want to rough you up, push you around. And I've yet to fight. And I've fought some of the toughest, strongest guys in the world. I've trained with the best in the world. And I'm telling you, I've never been out muscled. And, it's a blessing, but, I utilize that to my advantage, especially in the BKFC. BKB, I couldn't. BKB is what they call Victorian boxing, which is proper, back proper. You're not grabbing. If you grab, you got to break. If you watch Mick Terrell in my fight, when we fought, you'll see there's a couple times because my nose, they got ripped off, and I was wiping I'd grab them, and I'd wipe my nose on him to kind of clear my face. And he didn't like that very much. And I Mick's my boy, but you could see Mick pulling his hands up in the air, like, why'd you grab me? Like, what's going on? So, but here in the BKFC, we're allowed to do that. So,
Right.
So when you train, you're going to train boxing because you're going to train hands, but you need to train proper. You got to throw punches down the pipe, and I've got Chris coming up here for camp. And I think we're just going to make a whole new monster out of Sorrow. He's got every tool you could possibly need to be a champion. It's just, I think he just needs a little more guidance and a proper camp with big guys to bang on. And so, yeah, it's, as far as training goes, it's proper punching technique. And, it's that old school stuff, the old school stuff that I know that I learned from a lot of my cats over in the UK, and it's old school, dirty type boxing. And there's some stuff that I learned from those cats that I guarantee people here still are not hip to it. And no, I'll give my boys, my close friends and training partners, I keep them hip to it. But, I don't publicly say what it is. But there's a few things that are pretty sweet. It's bare knuckle. Yeah, you think about it. The body is so fragile, and there's so many ways to exploit that, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, man, that's actually really cool. All those insights. And it is interesting for me for, talking to a heavyweight like yourself, like training with the big gloves, the normal sparring type of gloves, 16 ounces with no wrist wraps, the types of things. That's kind of the stuff I wanted to kind of hear is like, how do you strengthen your hands without breaking your hands? Like, how do you strengthen your tools is as you call them, without breaking your tools? And that's it shows the experience is what I'm trying to get at. It shows your experience in the fight game from the time you were 5 years old till now. You've been around the game a little bit, and now you adjusted to this bare knuckle style of fighting, and then your training has to adapt to that as well. Super intriguing. And I did not know that the ropes were basically steel. I did not know that piece. So That is very intriguing. I'll be looking for that in the next fights because I did not realize that.
Yep.
Dang, man. So Josh, talking about being a big guy, you've referenced the ripped off nose. We saw the last fight. If you guys haven't seen the fight with Tate, between Josh and Tate, we saw, you got tagged a few times, and that's just part of the game. I tell people that all the time. It's like, dude, it's part of the sport, man. You're going to get caught. And especially at this size, like sometimes that just happens, right? And you took some damage and you just kept walking forward. Like, that's the thing, is like, he was a big boy. It's not like he's a small individual. That dude's a big boy. And you just kept taking shots and kept going forward. I mean, you lasted, what did you say? How many did you go all the way to decision on that?
No. I went to I think it was going to go. It was third round or fourth round.
It was either
And,
third or fourth. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just I got knocked down, and I'm like, God bless it. So I roll over, get on my knee. I look at the ref, and I'm like, I go, if I keep doing this, I'm gonna probably get hurt, like seriously injured. And he's like, what? I mean, he's like, are you done? I go, yeah. I'm like, it's just not my night. He's like, you sure? I'm like, yeah, it's just not my night, bro. He's like, all right, it's done. So, but at the end of the day, I was supposed to fight Dylan Kleckler,
Right.
and Dylan Kleckler pulled out, claiming injury, and then that cat's walking around the damn fight arena without a limp. He claimed that he tore his. Now, see, I'm educated, bro, and any other athlete in the world that knows, if you say you tear your hamstring, whether grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, no matter, like, there's levels to this shit. So even if it was a grade 3, like, and you know what I'm saying, like, you would have some kind of limp. All right, this dude's walking around smiling, smoking and joking with people, drinking his alcohol, like. Bro, you pulled out. You used to be bitched up. You pulled out. And I got a new opponent on Monday, the week of the fight, which was I was going to fight a guy that was my size. You know, he's littler than me, but he looks all shredded. And Kleckler. And I got Frank Tate, who's 6'4" or 6'5", and he had a 10-inch reach advantage. I wasn't worried about it, to be quite honest with you. I thought I was just going to go in there and smoke him, and felt great going into it. My catwalk was great. Had fun, danced down the aisle, acting like a goofball. My kids were there, so I was acting like trying to embarrass them, you know, act like goofball. And got in there. He came in, the Sweet Home Alabama. I was dancing to it. That was cool. And it was how I knew I was off is the ref looked at us and goes, okay, let's total line. I looked at the ref. I go, that line, like right there, that line. And I wasn't being goofy. Like that was a legit question. And I'm like, right there, mentally, something wasn't there, you know. And even Tate, I've talked to Frank, and I got a lot of respect for Frank, and he just goes, I expect you to fight like Josh. He goes, you didn't fight like yourself, you know. You like I expected more from you, and I'm like, I apologize. You know, at the end of the day, like, don't know what was going on. I was like in mud, you know. I was like in quicksand, and you can't take a punch from a man like Frank Tate and expect it not to do something to you. And you know, and I turned, you know, when I got hit, the first one I turned my head like this, so getting hit right in the temple. You could see at the end of the fight, I had a hematoma from the back of my ear to my temple, and it was from taking those right hands. I mean, his hands are like lunch boxes. So, you know, I proved that, you know, I'm a tough guy. It's hard to separate me from consciousness, but at some point you have to be a professional and go, you know what, tonight's just not my night, and I need to live to fight another day. And thank God, you know, I fought in the UK, because I learned that from them guys. Them guys, you know, they taught me, you know, hey, you can't win them all, and if you're in a situation or predicament that it's not going your way, just stop. You know, make sure you don't jack yourself up, you know. And with Tate, that's what I did, because Tate had the ability to probably seriously hurt me if I would have kept going. Because as you said, I would just kept getting up and I kept walking into everything. And then when we tied up, he always ended up under me. If you watch the fight, he ended up under me. So my MMA experience, like grappling, I was dominant grappler. You know, I had him under me every time, and the state take advantage of it. You know, I was just a nice guy. Like, oh, okay, cool. You know, and if you saw every time he knocked me down, I'd slap his hand, tell him good job. You know, I don't know what was wrong with me, you know, and it takes nothing away from Frank. Frank was the man, but it was a unique night, and it is bare knuckle. So you just can't take that kind of damage and expect to, you know, no matter how tough you are, you can't take that kind of damage without having something happen, you know.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And I thought Tate did a great job with his jab. Like you mentioned, a reach advantage. He had a lot of straights. Like his jab and his straight were just kind of like a very, you know, like boxing 101 style, like very. But like that's what he had to do, and he was able to connect. Which, if anybody has any fight experience, like that's a tough night in the office when they're actually connecting with those things, and you're just not in your game. And then all of a sudden you're like, dude, anything I do, I can't slip it. I can't get inside. It's just the nature of the game. I am curious though, Josh, like. You got your nose ripped off back in the day. You got, you know, your eye got kind of cut open. But bare knuckle, what would you say is the worst, you know, like injury you've taken in the game?
Well, the worst one, I fought Daniel Pottermore in the UK. And if you watch that fight, now the BKB, because they're just not professional, you know, that's just the easiest way to say it. I'll leave it at that. They're not professional. So I have wins. All my knockout wins, they took off the internet, and they left up 4 fights. My Nick Terrell, my Harry Miles, those were 2 clear losses. I lost those fights. Then I fought a guy named Tony Johnson, who's a stud, but Tony, he cut me. It was a fingernail cut above my eyes, clear as day. Even the medical professionals in the background, like, yo, it looks like you were cut by like a surgical thing, because you got punched. It's like a grape, and this is where medical people that are uneducated, like the owners of BKB, they just, oh no, mate, you lost. And I'm like, okay. Then I provide the medical paperwork and like, oh, well, we'll fix it. That never happened. Then I fought Daniel Pottermore, knocked it out. Like I knocked him out in the first round. They gave him a 22, 23-second count. You get I think it's a 19 or 18-second count over there. And he took every bit of it and some more. And then they let him go. Well, I went in for the finish. And I got a thumb that went so far in the back of my eye, it pinched my ocular nerve. I wasn't allowed to leave the UK. And again, I have the UK doctors. This ain't American doctors. It's the UK cats. They're not going to let me get on the plane because they're saying I need to have surgery. They blow air into your eye or something. I don't know. But my ocular nerve, if you look up where the ocular nerve is, it's behind the fucking eye. And their exact words was, the only way that gets damaged like that is by some type of projectile being shot into the eye. They're like, we're surprised your eyeball didn't come out of socket. And I'll be honest with you. And I said it after the fight. I had video where I was like, oh my God. I'm like, I don't know what happened, but Pottermore hits harder than any person I've ever been hit by, because it hurt so bad. My eye hurt so bad. You'll see I hug him and I'm holding him on the ropes and I'm just holding my eye on him. And I didn't know I got thumbed, and what'd you just say in the last fight? I got hit and I just keep coming forward, right? That's me. I'm just going to keep coming forward. Like, I'm not a bitch. I'm not going to look at the rubber. Oh, my eye. Like, that's just not me. Well, it's a detriment, because then you go from that first round where obviously I clearly won 10-8. That first round, 10-8, knocked him down. Anyone watch the fight, I knocked him out. Then go in the second round, my eye just goes, whoop, it's giant swollen. And then he's taking liberties hitting me, and I'm having a hard time. I'm one-eyed. But he can't hurt me. He can't hurt me while he's hitting me. And then, of course, they throw in the red towel, like, oh, God, no. Little did I know this was going to be my last fight with them. And, so I think there was a little rubbish going on in the back. But long story short, went to the hospital, have all the documents. We've kept the documents. My attorneys have kept the documents, because what BKB did was they did something to try to hurt me by taking all my wins down, but they only ended up helping me. They helped the allure of who I am, because I have all the medical documents that I've proven to all the interviewers that I've interviewed with. I can email them to you, and you'll see it's from the King George or whatever hospital that is. And it's their professionals that are like, yo, somebody put something in your eye. And obviously I'm a fighter. They're like, you got a finger in the eye. It's clear. You got a finger in the eye. Well, there's a couple still shots where you can see where his fist is here and you don't see his thumb. That motherfucker's buried in my eye. So, and it's not Daniel's, it's not Pottermore's fault. Pottermore's a good fighter. He's a tough dude. It just happened to be, I was going in for the kill and he was like this, doing that, and by leaning back and doing that number, you don't have control of your fingers. And I obviously took one right to the eye, and I'm not going to complain about it, because I got hit. God's honest truth, but I got hit. And I didn't realize I was poked in the eye until the doctor said it. And then we rewatched the fight, and we watched it in slow-mo, and she basically sitting there looking, I go, right here or right here. She gave me two options. She goes, happened on that punch or this punch. And she goes, I'm surprised that your eye stayed in the socket. I didn't know that your eye can pop out of socket and not lose your eye. You can pop it back in. I didn't know that. I learned that there. So she was like, you were very close to having your eye pop out. And that was probably the most painful thing I have ever gone through, because I didn't know if I was going to be able to fight again. I was worried about my retina being torn. It was crazy. My retina didn't get torn, no damage to the eye. It was just that ocular nerve got pinched, and it took me almost a year to heal it and rehab it before the doctors would give me the okay to where I could take blows to the head again.
Wow, dude, it actually makes my eye hurt thinking about it. And I've never been poked to that extent, but I remember there's a basketball tournament, Josh. I was going for a rebound. I was pulling the ball down. Guy was swiping up for the ball and just went straight into my eye. And I just remember like how bad it hurt. I couldn't get it. I couldn't get it better. Like everyone's like, dude, just take a couple minutes, go on to the side, sub in, whatever. And I'm like, dude, it won't get better. I couldn't even open my eye. And so like just the thought of that actually like makes me sick. I can't believe that. So that's like the dangers of the game that you wouldn't even think of. Like most fans would be like, oh, I got cracked, shattered my orbital bone or whatever it may be, right? And it's like, no, this is a freak accident that happens in the sport, man. Super crazy.
You got to think Daniel Pottermore is their heavyweight champion now. So it's funny because he's their heavyweight champ and he's a stud. He hits hard. So imagine him throwing a punch like it's fight or flight, and he's not running. He's going to fight. So, and I walk right into him doing this number. You could clearly see it on the fight, doing this number. And one of the punches there's two spots where it could have happened. where we didn't see where the thumb was. We saw where the hand was, but the thumb was gone. And it's funny. So, get a top caliber fighter like himself throwing with the power that he has and throws, instead of hitting you, he's throwing that, thumb in the eye. So it's not, like I said, it's nothing against Daniel. Pottermore's a good guy. He's a quality fighter. It happens. That kind of shit happens. The bad part is that provide the documentation, show everything, and then the promotion. Like, that's the bad thing about BKB. BKB is the Wild West. So, like, when Tony Johnson and I fought, it was supposed to be for the heavyweight title because Nick was gone. It was the vacated heavyweight championship. And even though it was cut, and it was clearly from a fingernail, Tony came back to see me, and I'm like, yo, make sure you get your belt. Don't let these guys not give you your belt because they're classic for it. There's no commissions over there. They're not overseen by anybody. They go, oh, we have the WBK something. It's some bullshit they made up. They legit, I'm not even being a hater. Like, legit, they have no governing bodies over there. So they represent, they monitor and corral themselves. So whatever Jim and Joe want to happen, that's what happens. So at the end of the day, they're not accountable to anybody. So they can say what they want. That's why they go to BoxRec. You go like 4 different places, look for my record. Every place is different. Every record's different. Everywhere you go, we're like, Burns, what is your record? Like, what? Well, here you go. This is what it is, and I lay it out. And you got Jim and Joe, oh, that's not his record. He lost 4 times over here. And we're like, I lost 2 times, lost my debut, and I lost for the world title, 100%. Tony Johnson and I, it was clearly it was a cut. Clear, like in the first round, we threw, I think it was maybe 12 jabs at each other, and that was it. And it was done. It was a nice big spread open. And then obviously the Daniel Pottermore knocked his ass out in the first round. But because of their Victorian rule and their English count, which clearly you see him hit the ground, I mean, he slumps under the bottom rope. It is what it is. So, and I like the guys. I like all the fighters over there. They're quality guys. So I just want to deal with those jokers, personally, just because, I mean, they've proven themselves. I mean, a lot of people don't like Mark Godbeer or have problems with him. Mark Godbeer fought for them. And what they do, they took Mark Godbeer's fight off like it never existed, like he's not a fighter here. And they made a belt. They've only had the world title belt for the heavyweights. And then all of a sudden they came up with the British belt and the world title belt. They're 2 different things now. And so Pottermore is the British champion, not the world champion. And it's a company. It's one company. I don't know how you have 4 different belts working for a company in one weight class. You know what I'm saying? So they kind of do what they want to do. And I'm not trying to, rag on them because I respect all the fighters that fight over there. It's a different style of fighting, and it's got to be respected. That's where I got my start, and I learned from a lot of the Wales and the Welshmen and the Travelers. They taught me a lot, and they were respectful and took me under their wing. So I respect them for that. It's just, the business side of stuff is always paying the butt, as usual.
Yeah, but that's also it's also another testament to the BKFC, a little bit of a credit shown to them and how they've been able to grow and learn from. They're probably doing their research as well. They understand the game. Sounds like you got a little bit better organization over here with the BKFC compared to the BKB. It's just crazy hearing some of these stories. Now, I want to hear a couple of things from you. Your pre-fight routine when you get to the stadium or whatever venue you're fighting at. What's your pre-fight routine, Josh? How do you get yourself mentally prepared to walk out there and actually throw fists with another human being that is a heavyweight, which can do damage to you if you get hit? Knowing that that's going to happen, how do you mentally prepare? What's your pre-fight routine?
Well, I'm an educated guy, but I'm not very smart when it comes to fighting because when I come to the venue, I'm not worried about getting hit. Nobody can knock me out. It's been my career. No one's been strong enough to knock me out. Tate was the first guy to legit knock me down in a stand-up fight. And, I popped right up, but he hit me like a damn freight train. So, but there's a lot of pride that I get taking that because I'm still 43 and taking some shots that would take half that roster, if not more than half of our roster completely out. And I kept walking through them multiple times. So I'm not really worried about getting hit per se. I'm more worried about cuts. Cuts are a big thing. As far as ritual, man, I just do better when Mark's there. Mark Coleman's like a big brother to me, and he's mentored me through pretty much 90% of my career, and he's always been there for me. And having him there is a big difference. It's a big game changer because it's just it's a mentality of Hammer House. I'm Hammer House, been Hammer House, my entire career, and Hammer House has got a different approach to the game. We don't give a fuck win, lose, or draw. We're gonna come out there and fuck you up. It's like, you know, walk into a yard and you're like, you know what? I get that dog. I can kick him. I can beat him. I can get him the fuck off me. Probably kill it, you know. But it's a pit bull. I know if he gets a hold of me, it's gonna fuck me up on some end. And we look at it like we're the pit bulls. We're gonna fuck you up, whether we win or lose. We're gonna fuck you up. You're gonna remember you were in a fight with us, and that's the mentality. So I'm a pretty chill, laid back guy, man. When I go to the venue with the BKFC, it's been a little different. I actually like having a lady named Katie Shook there. That's the matchmaker's wife, Katie Shook. And Katie Shook brings a peace. I don't like, she was there before I walked out with Chris Sarl fight. You know, she's like, okay, telling you where to get on your mark, tell you when you're going to go, what your time sets are. And she just, I hate to say it, but it's like a motherly type thing. And she's a young lady. She's younger than me. And, but she brings a certain peace to it. So I like Katie Shook when she's there, brings that peace. And then Mark Coleman and my trainer Vic, between the two of them, it's like salt and pepper. You know, they both have their own little thing, but together, you know, we shake shit up. And at the end of the day, I'm a joker, man. When I'm backstage, I'm a joker, smoker, having fun. That's when I perform the best. If I get super serious, that's one of two things happens. I end the fight within the first 30 seconds, or it's a bad night for me because I'm too tense, too tight. And so that's pretty much my fight rituals.
I feel you on that. I think that's awesome though to hear, because everybody's different. Some people are super calm. Some people have to hype themselves up. Every fighter's different in the way that they conduct themselves coming out. When you get to the squared circle, so they call it, and you're in there, finally you've done the walkouts, everything. Now it's time to get down to business, right? You're going up there to toe the line. I love how, you know, in BKFC, I mean, I love the toe the line aspect of it. I love that they, you know, you're not starting in a corner and you're coming into you start in the center of the ring, if you will, the center of the circle, and you just go. I mean, you don't get to walk in. It's like you start there. I love that, but it is a tad intimidating. I always think to myself, like back to my boxing matches, like, you know, taking a deep breath at that point, like there's a lot of stuff going through my head. And all I was trying to do is just like, okay, forget what my family's saying out in the crowd. Like just, okay, now I got to focus in on this. And I'm trying to like just compartmentalize everything. I get nervous watching you guys toe the line. When it comes to that point where you're just about to go, are you nervous, excited, or are you kind of like, is it almost like quiet?
Well, I don't give a shit who tells you they ain't nervous. You got nerves, man.
Yeah.
Everyone's got nerves. You ain't alive if you don't have nerves. And if you say you don't have nerves, you're a liar. So whether they're positive nerves, nervous nerves, you know, like butterflies, something's going on. But by the time you step on that line up to the walk, once you step on that line, it's going to start pretty damn quick. So at that point, you've got to be focused, you know. And for me, it's head work. You know, I'm thinking head movement. You know, I want to pay attention to what my opponent does. Does he step out? Does he step back? The first step is it backwards. That tells me a lot about the fighter too. Like, okay, they respect me or they're afraid of my power. And I've yet to have anybody like stand up, you know, when they say toe the line, that walks forward on me. Nobody walks forward. So right there, that's a mental check where you're like, okay, they know what you're about. Like mentally, you know how it goes. You're a fighter. You know, you had that time in the ring. Shit slows down. So,
yeah.
You know, I could have an hour-long conversation with myself in about 30 seconds. Okay. And literally that's how it feels. That's slow. So you pay attention. When I fought Chris Sarl, obviously I was coming off like a 16-month layoff, you know, because of the eye and everything. And I started slow that first round. I mean, enough to where I hit him a couple times and I knew when I hit him, I was like, okay, he didn't like that. He didn't expect that. He didn't expect my hand speed or whatever it may be. But then that's why I have Mark Coleman and Vic in the corner. And between it, I need the two of them. I can't have just one of them. And it's a combination, you know. And the last fight proved it because, you know, Vic's aggressive and like you know, you listen talking to me, you gotta wake up, throw your right. But if I had Coleman, he would be countering that with JB, you need to fucking go. You need to do this. You know, it's a combination of things, you know. So. And within all that, you know, walking to the line, you got your corner, you've got your back. So you know your team's there and all the work you've put in. If you've busted your ass in camp, you know, I do 8-week camps. I don't have to do any more because I train all year round, you know. So it really only takes me 6 to 8 weeks to really be fight ready. And as long as your team's behind you and you got a solid team, I think walking, towing that line is pretty much, you're now in fight mode. Even though you're not fighting yet, you're waiting for them to say knuckle up, you know. you're already in fight mode. I'm analyzing, I'm watching, I'm looking for things. How am I going to set a trap up? Trying to be 3 steps ahead.
I dig that. In the BKFC, I have a question for heavyweights. Like in UFC, look at different promotions. Like heavyweights have to meet 265. They can't be over 265. So some guys have to cut. Some guys are smaller versions of heavyweights because they don't have to do anything but eat because they can't meet 265 anyways. For you, in the BKFC, do they have a weight limit for heavyweights for the fans out there listening? And if they do you have to cut weight and how does that go?
Well, the BKFC itself does not have a weight class. Like anything over 206, you're heavyweight.
Okay.
But because we're new and we go to new states, like when we fought in Alabama, it was the first time. And that Alabama commission is very unique. And they treat us like MMA fighters. So I was coming in at like 270. And they're like, oh, by the way, on Tuesday, you got to weigh 265 on Thursday. That's only 5 pounds, and I'm a fat boy, so I can cut that weight. But I was like, oh, that's some bullshit,
Yeah.
So, but like Mississippi, other places I've been, no, heavyweight's heavyweight. It's unlimited. It's heavyweight, and obviously, if you come in too heavy, it's a detriment. So, but yeah, usually there's no weight class, but it really, because we're a new sport and these commissions are, for them, they're super like on edge and being super close and like strict with liability issues. Like if I showed you the list of medical things I had to do for the state of Alabama, dude, you would laugh. Like obviously I'm a med student, I did my time at school and I looked at it and all my boys are doctors. And I'm like, look at this redundant shit. Like there's tests that you can't, because I did A and B, C and D legally won't even be, like the insurance companies won't cover it because it's redundant. We've already did A and B. You can't do C and D. That's going to be out of pocket cost. Like $7,000 tests and shit. And you're like, and so my doctor's like, yo, you better let them know we're about to send, because one of my docs on one of the big boards up here, he's like, well, our board will send a letter telling them like, what are you doing? And as soon as they knew that, they're like, oh no, you're good. That it's okay with what you have. Like, yeah. But when I tell you, I'm not shitting you. I'm like it was like 16 things, like medical things. You're like, bro, I'm healthier than most 25-year-olds that come in there. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, I understand if I was, God, I'm trying to think of, not put people down, but you take a heavyweight that's been knocked out a lot, 5 or 6 times, and at the end of their career, I get it, for safety reasons. But you get a guy like me, even the last fight where I just took abuse, I never lost consciousness. I was cognitive and was able to communicate the entire time. Never had an issue, the hematoma caused me some pain, so we did go to the ER after the fight. Like after I went to the hotel, we decided to go to the ER, and no cracks, no fractures, no nothing. It was just the hematoma, which is causing discomfort, obviously on the side of my head. That was it. So I understand, but I think these commissions need to do a better job on their history, like do their homework, pay attention to who's fighting, and make it applicable, because they basically after age 40 they treat you like you're a geriatric. Like if you don't come with your Geritol and a fucking walking cane, they're not going to let you fight. That kind of thing. So
they already think you're a member of the AARP. Basically, they've got you already set up for that. And that is interesting though, because it is a relatively new sport in the United States compared to other combat sports. It's the fastest growing combat sport, but that being said, it is relatively new. So each state that is now opening, little by little, it's opening. It is interesting to see. They're trying to catch the hang of it, get the hang of it all, and hopefully it'll continue to gain steam, and it can be more unified, if you will. That is crazy, though. So basically what you're saying is a 210-pounder who might not be able to cut down below 205, which would be crazy. I mean, but just if we're being just technical, a 210-pounder could be fighting a 290, technically speaking, in the BKFC. Okay, so just so everybody understands that it's a little bit different with the BKFC rules than what you might be used to in the UFC, where there's a 265 limit. But obviously there was the anomaly here with Alabama. Now, as we're wrapping up the interview, Josh, I did have a couple things I wanted to touch base on. You've referenced Chris Saros' fight a couple of times. I had Chris on the show, which was an amazing interview with him, hearing his whole story, his background of life, and then fighting and so forth. He's relatively new into fighting, especially at the professional level. You've been at the professional level for quite some time now. But before the fight, it seemed like there was some animosity. Chris talked about how fighting brings people together and you gain an immense amount of respect for one another. And you had referenced that he would be coming up for camp. He had talked about that as well. So now you guys seem to have like a brotherhood type of a friendship through fighting. But before that, you didn't. Do you mind giving us your perspective on kind of what led up to the Chris situation and then afterwards how things have transpired?
Yeah, real simple, man. Before Chris and I fought, Chris reached out to me trying to be nice. I'm a veteran though, bro. He's trying to reach out to me. He sent me some artwork that he made, and he's like, "Hey, it's an honor to fight you. Here's some artwork that I made for our fight." Laugh out loud, and I'm like, "Okay, cool. Thumbs up, respect." And I had an interview probably a week later, and I didn't know that these guys that I interviewed with were Chris's ex managers. So I didn't know that. So obviously they were going to poke, and they asked, "Well, have you had any kind of communication with this guy? Do you know this guy?" I'm like, "No." I said, but he did reach out to me. He's not my friend on social media, but he did reach out to me. So I had to, accept the message. And I said, he reached out to me, tell me it was an honor, this and that. I said, that's kind of a bitch move, bro. As a veteran, I look at it as you like kind of tipping your hand going, you afraid. Like you tipping your hand going, all right, like I know you the man, like it's an honor to fight you. I'm a veteran, bro. I don't care. Like Joe Riggs, all my boys, they'll say the same thing. They all say, yeah, bro, I ain't reaching out to my fucking opponent saying shit. Like even I think you're the coolest, funniest motherfucker. I ain't saying shit to you until I beat that ass or you knock me out, and then we'll be boys afterwards. So he took that huge, like as a huge disrespect, and it just rolled from there. It snowballed, and obviously I'm a little more. I consider myself to be a little more articulate and a little more on point. So I like to be able to disrespect you in a proper way, in a way where people, when they watch it, they're like, "Oh, that's cool information," but oh shit, he's like dogging that dude. Like that's me. So I'm not gonna come right out to you and call you names and do all that, third grader shit. So anyways, and we had a fight, and it wasn't cool after the fight. Trust me, it was not cool. I didn't want to see him. Like, we just had some personal sayings, and I don't want to rehash up what they were, but some serious, more serious things with families and stuff that were involved. And so it was not cool after. And Mark Coleman had to Mark Coleman almost went to town the backstage because his people were a little riled up. Because I was a dick. If you watch the fight, like I'm a pretty cool, respectful guy. But after the fight, dude, Dan Mergulai, first of all, throws me like a fucking potato sack, and I do a little ninja roll pop up, and then Dan, thank God Dan's my boy because he didn't disqualify me, and then obviously, I'm double burdening him and stuff, and it was pretty wild. That was pretty disrespectful on my half after the fight, and then it wasn't good. And then I fought Tate. I didn't know that Chris had lost his fight on that card when I fought Tate, but I did not know. But after my fight with Tate, I was walking back. Obviously, it looked like fucking Quasimodo, and Chris comes jogging up, and my coach Vic was sitting there, and he sees him, and he's gonna start moving towards him. And in my mind, I'm going, look, if he's gonna say anything to me, I deserve whatever he's gonna say. I gotta take it because I just got my ass whooped. So I put my hand on my coach's hip and like, just let him say what he's gonna say. And the kid came up and straight up, his first words out of his mouth said, "Bro, you okay?" and my first words were like, "Yeah, that boy can punch." He's like, "Yeah, I saw." And as I'm walking back to the medical tent, now he has to stop at a certain point because he can't go further. And so he's like, "All right, well, we'll talk when you get out." I'm like, "All right, bet, cool." And went back, got all my stitches, all that stuff done, and from that point forward, it was I think we reached out on social media. I think he reached out to me. And he reached out to me because I had an interview like this, and I said, "Hey, I got to give Chris Sauer respect after that fight." The last person in the world that I thought would come up and say, "Hey, are you okay?" and be genuine was Chris Sauer. And he was actually probably the only one that came up and did, besides family and friends. And that was a big deal. And I took that as a huge respect. And, from there, we pretty much have talked damn near daily for the last 2 months. And, he's a really good guy. And I think it's just inexperience on his end and me getting a little overhyped. And, we squashed all that junk, and I'm going to bring him up. And I really think that he can be a world champion. I just think it's just the matter of the team that's surrounding, what he does. You know what I'm saying? So,
For sure.
Yeah. So there you go. That's about as quick as I can.
Wow. No, that's awesome, man. I that is so crazy hearing it from your perspective too. That's super, super cool. For those listening, if you haven't heard, Chris talked kind of about it, alluded to a few things that had happened there, and then hearing it from Josh's perspective is really cool because, yeah, it's the fight game. And I've never actually brought on two former opponents on this show in 4.5 years. So, that's really cool just to hear. That's the first time I've gotten to do that. So, the last question I have for you, Josh, before I ask you about what's next, which we might not be able to go into details of, but we'll ask you this. We always learn from wins and losses and so forth. Everybody likes to hear about the knockouts and whatnot, but you have talked about some of the losses here. For the listeners out there, whether they're a parent of an athlete a former athlete or a current athlete, regardless of what sport it is, if they're a fighter, if they're just a basketball player, football player, whatever it is, how do you handle the losses? Because that is where I feel like we have to dig deep within ourselves, especially in the fight game for that matter, because you literally were, testosterone's running, you just got beat, right? How do you handle the losses? How have you been able to get out of the loss and move forward, understanding like, okay, take mine, and now it's time to get back at it and keep that savage mentality?
It is a process. This is not something that you learn overnight. And when I fought for Bellator, obviously I fought main card every time. I was always a short notice fight. I never got more than 2 to 3 weeks notice. And I always fought top tier guys, Bobby Lashley, Prendles, the fucking, Thiago Santos, everybody, right? And when I would lose in Bellator, they would try to send me my check. There's good checks. And I'd be in my room and I would tell whoever was trying to cut the check, I'm like, I don't want the fucking money. Give it to donations. Give it to some charity. Like, I was really like, I was proper in public, but I crumble personally. And it takes time. It takes the right people around you. I got my fiance with me now, and I've lost wives in this business. I've lost family, just because it takes a toll. It's so much of your time, but you have to have the right people that truly have your back. No matter what, rain or shine, they're there. And I really believe it's about the team and the family that you have around you. And when I say family, that don't mean your fucking blood. That means who you might be your training partners. So you got to have the right people around you, and you got to have the mindset like, hey, look, man, everybody has a bad day. Now, if you lost 10 in a row, maybe you need to look for another career, okay? But, if you've got a decent, if you're doing well and you get a loss and, it's a stumble. All you got to do is dust yourself off, get back up, keep that positive mindset. Like me with this Tate thing. I mean, my God, if I beat Tate, which was supposed to be a given, I would have been fighting Joey Beltran now. I was fighting the winner of the Joey Sam fight. So, and I lost a lot of shit in that fight, and I fell back. So now I'm 2 fights away from being, getting a title shot and being title contention, and instead of just that one. And it's a mental mindset, and having a proper team and your proper mindset as far as realizing that, it was just a stumble. Yeah, that's it. Just a simple stumble. And, you got to learn from it. And the great thing is with my losses, for me personally speaking, I can look at the fight with Frank Tate and I can take literally, let's just take all the losses and the wins and just say, look at the way I fought. And I know when I fought Frank Tate, I was not 20% of what I was Josh Burns. Like Josh Burns is a come forward, throws and punches and bunches. I'm a grimy fighter, and I didn't do that. So you know what? I can just sit back and go, okay, I didn't have a good night. I wasn't on. I had a great camp, was in great shape, felt great. Mentally, something was wrong, and it happens. So, dust yourself off, keep a strong mindset, because this game is 90% mental, 10% physical, 90% mental. I've seen guys that go in there with the mental strength of a fucking lion, and a guy that's got the body of a Greek god, but his mental strength is at a 20. And trust me, the guy that had the big Greek body got his ass whooped. He should have won. Physically, he had more physical attributes and strengths, but the guy that was mentally stronger pulled it out. So you got to have a strong mindset. That's probably my biggest thing for young fighters, to stay strong mentally. You know that this is a 90% mental game.
I dig that. I love that. And I love that you mentioned the support crew as well. For those listening, if you're an athlete, anybody who's a friend of an athlete, whatever, understand that losses suck. That's part of life. We understand that. But even in life, if you go through a divorce, I've talked about that in my life. I went through a divorce when I was 25. One of those situations where it's unexpected. You need the support system. So if you're in sports, you need the support system. Be a supporter, rain or shine. Don't be a fair weather fan, if you will. Don't be fair weather family. Don't be fair weather friends. Be there, rain or shine. I dig that piece of it too. So the mental side and the support side is such a huge aspect of dealing with loss. What's next for Josh Burns, man? If you could just tell us real quick what you expect to have happen without, you don't have to go into details or anything if you don't know him, but what should we expect to see next with Josh Burns? What are you preparing for so we can get ready for it in the BKFC?
But right now we're getting ready. We're preparing for Sam Schumacher. Sam Schumacher is the fight that we want. It's a fight that needs to happen. Dave Feldman, the owner of the BKFC, said it's fight he wants to see. It only makes sense. We're both 2 top 5 contenders. We both lost. Granted, he lost to Joey Beltran. I lost to a guy that wasn't ranked. But at the end of the day, we're 2 top 5 contenders that both lost. If you want to stay relevant and stay in title contention, we both fight. The winner continues in title contention. The loser needs to kick rocks and restart. So for me, that's pretty much it's a game over for me. If I lose to Sam Shoemaker, I'm probably pretty much done because I'm too old. I don't have the time to get 5 fights to work my way back up to the top. So it's a great fight. It's an intriguing fight. Sam and I were supposed to fight 3 times prior. One time was not neither of our faults. Then there was 2 other fights that were canceled. Obviously, I was ready for both of those. So at the end of the day, Sam Shoemaker's the next fight, man. He's the next fight, and we're pushing hard for it. And I think he knows he knows what's up. So it'll be a great fight.
Look forward to seeing it, man. I'm looking forward to see how all this transpires with the matchmaking, and hopefully it's in the next couple of months if we can get that to go down. Hope Sam hears that and realizes how important this really, really is for the sport. I look forward to it, Josh, and I appreciate you being willing to share your story with us and share your knowledge, and we just look forward to rooting for you moving forward, man. So thank you so much for joining the show.
Right on, bro. Appreciate you guys having me.
Take care, man. And for all those out there, make sure to subscribe to the podcast, share this with your friends and family so they can hear from Josh, and we'll talk to you guys. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review, it would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.